We tried to tell him, Gamecock Nation. We tried to tell him that Dylan Stewart was going to wind up a Gamecock at the end of the process. And that is exactly what has happened here today.
You are Locked On Gamecocks, your daily podcast on the South Carolina Gamecocks. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, Gamecock Nation, and welcome to what is probably an extra special reaction edition of the Locked On Gamecocks podcast, where we cover your South Carolina Gamecocks every single day. I am Andrew Lyon, the host of the Locked On Gamecocks podcast, and also a staff writer for Gamecocks Digest on SI.com. Thank you for making the Locked On Gamecocks podcast your first listener watch here today. We are free and available both on YouTube and wherever you get your audio podcasts daily. And the South Carolina Gamecocks just landed Dylan Stewart. We've been feeling confident on our end for a very long time now, in spite of some of the predictions back in the spring that Dylan Stewart was going to go elsewhere, in spite of the stigma that surrounds South Carolina's football recruiting operations. South Carolina just landed a kid with limitless potential in five-star edge rusher Dylan Stewart, and one that could help change the image of this entire program. With looking at this recruitment and how it unfolded, we said this. It was going to be a marathon, not a sprint. And that is, for the most part, how this played out. The recruitment of Dylan Stewart really began for South Carolina back in March of 2022, which was when Dylan Stewart took his first visit to Columbia. His recruitment really began to pick up steam with the Gamecocks this past fall, when he took visits for South Carolina's home games against the Texas A&M Aggies and the Tennessee Volunteers. By the way, he was a part of the field storming after the Tennessee victory. He was pursued by multiple prestigious programs across the college football landscape, with programs like Georgia, Miami, Ohio State, Alabama, Michigan, and plenty of others pursuing him. But he came to South Carolina's spring game on April the 15th. He officially visited South Carolina on the weekend of June the 23rd through the 25th. And when looking back at all the visits he took, the relationship he built with Sterling Lucas, the edge and outside linebackers coach, and Shane Beamer, the head coach, it seemed like that combined with the visits sealed the deal for the Gamecocks, as they have landed their guy in Dylan Stewart. Now, let's get to the fun part. Let's talk about what the Gamecocks are getting in Dylan Stewart, the prospect. When looking back at Dylan Stewart's film from Friendship Collegiate Academy, located in Washington, D.C., I had a few different takeaways on the Gamecocks' new commit. From an athleticism standpoint, Dylan Stewart doesn't have a good get-off. He doesn't have a great get-off. He has an elite get-off at the line of scrimmage, and he's also got really fluid bend for a guy that is measured at around 6'5" or 6'6" in terms of his height. Dylan Stewart also is one of the rare edge rushers that moves almost as well laterally as he does vertically. And in this case, this helps him when trying to defeat reach blocks that are trying to cut him off on the outside of a running play. And the other thing about Dylan Stewart that impresses me is his feet are always moving. His feet are like engine pistons. They don't ever stop. And that leads to him affecting almost every single play of the game. Now, when looking at some of his position-specific traits, Dylan Stewart understands the importance of leverage when he is attacking pull blockers in rush defense. That will help him when it comes to defending power runs, counter runs. He also possesses patience when it comes to zone read and option meshes in the opposing team's backfield. He's not going to just run on in there like gangbusters and make the assumption that one guy's getting the ball and the other guy isn't. He is going to crash on the down block properly and make sure that he's not going to run himself out of the play. He's also got a plethora of pass rushing moves. He has got hand swipes in his arsenal, along with a dip and rip pass rushing move as well. And Dylan Stewart also at times can get creative. He can show, say, a fake club move, but use his dip and rip instead to try and open things up underneath the upper body of an offensive lineman, which again gives him a leverage advantage and a chance to, at the very minimum, draw a potential holding call from one of the referees on the field. My overall thoughts on Dylan Stewart: athletically speaking, he is already better than all the South Carolina edge rushers currently on the roster. And while he could use a little bit of work in terms of his arm extension in rush defense and his consistency with his active hands in pass rush, Dylan Stewart has the potential to be one of the best pass rushers in school history, and the best the program has had since Jadeveon Clowney was roaming the field in Williams-Brice Stadium. My overall projection long-term, I think Dylan Stewart could be an All-American, and I think he could be a first-round draft pick. I think this kid can be the very best at his position in all of college football. There's a reason why some people have him rated as the number one prospect in the country. There is a reason why a lot of people have him rated as the number one or number two edge rusher in the country, because all the evaluators can see it too. If only they could see that for the longest time, South Carolina was the team to beat here. Not Ohio State, not Georgia, not Miami, not Maryland, certainly South Carolina. But now that the Gamecocks have landed Dylan Stewart, it's time we ask a follow-up question. How does this impact the program? What all does this do for South Carolina? We're going to dive into that a little bit more in just a couple moments right here on Locked On Gamecocks. Today's show is brought to you by LinkedIn Jobs. Now, when you're a small business owner, obviously, you've got a lot of things that you have to worry about. You've got to worry about the building itself, making sure all of your facilities are in proper and working condition. But you've also got to worry about the people that you have working inside of your building, because you cannot run your business alone. You need people that are qualified for unique roles and positions, such as customer service, maybe some marketing specialists, obviously some managers. And if you want to be able to find the right people for your business, then you need to check out LinkedIn Jobs. Just add your job and the purple hashtag hiring frame to your LinkedIn profile to spread the word that you're hiring, and utilize tools like screening questions to filter through all of the candidates. Be sure to post your job for free at linkedin.com/lockedoncollege. Again, that's linkedin.com/lockedoncollege to post your job for free today. Terms and conditions do apply. Welcome back to today's edition of the Locked On Gamecocks Podcast, where we cover your South Carolina Gamecocks every single day. All right, let's dive into the impact of Dylan Stewart's pledge to South Carolina. What does this do for the Gamecocks football program? Well, here's what this commitment does. Dylan Stewart's commitment to South Carolina validates the recruiting process and the strategy for Shane Beamer and the staff. It also at the same time proves that the Nicholas Harper win on the recruiting trail in the 2023 recruiting cycle wasn't some one-off. It wasn't some outlier. South Carolina is now a force to be reckoned with when it comes to recruiting, not just in the state of South Carolina, not just in the southeastern United States, but across the entire country. At the minimum, the entire eastern half of the United States. There should no longer be a single team out there that looks at South Carolina when they are pursuing one of these top prospects and sit there and say, we don't have to worry about South Carolina. That is very quickly evaporating as we speak. You land a Nicholas Harper in one cycle, you'll get a pat on the back. But you follow that up by landing another 5-star from the same region and a pass rusher at that, a premium position in this sport. You don't get a pat on the back for that. You get a bunch of wide eyes looking at you. You get a bunch of other programs, other fans looking at each other like, what is going on here? South Carolina just landed a 5-star for the second straight recruiting. Yes, they just did. Yes, they did. People really think that Shane Beamer and this staff can't pull this off over and over again. They're proving it right now. They can. These recruits think that they can win here. And of course, Shane Beamer and the staff, they still got to continue to show progression and maintain momentum on the field when it comes to the results at the end of the season. But right now, these recruits, they can see what's being built in Columbia, South Carolina. A guy like Dylan Stewart coming to Columbia, you know how much that's going to get the attention of other 5-stars? Again, if the Nicholas Harper recruiting victory didn't do that, Dylan Stewart surely will. Defensive players especially are going to look at this and they're going to say, you know, I wasn't maybe even looking at South Carolina at first, but now I think I need to start considering them. I might want to join forces with some of those guys. With a Dylan Stewart, with a Wendell Gregory, with a Braden Lee, so on and so forth. This team, they're not maybe there on level of Georgia quite yet. They're not. But you know something? The gap is closing. It is closing. Even if it is just a couple of yards every other recruiting victory, South Carolina slowly but surely is evening the playing field with the best program in all of college football right now in the Georgia Bulldogs. They are. And guess what? Georgia wanted Dylan Stewart really badly here. South Carolina beat them out. They beat Mario Cristobal down in Miami out. And they beat out Ryan Day and the Ohio State Buckeyes, who have produced multiple big-time edge rushers in their program as well. Pure validation is what this recruiting victory is. Validation and what we have all believed for so long with Dylan Stewart. Validation of what Shane Beamer is doing. Validation where this program is heading. And again, they're not there yet. They haven't arrived just yet. But make no mistake. Shane Beamer and the Gamecocks, they're coming. And if you blink, they might be just right on your doorstep. With that being said, that does it for this reaction show from the Locked On Gamecocks podcast. Thank y'all so much for tuning in to this reaction show. What are your thoughts on Dylan Stewart, the prospect? What do you think he's going to bring to Columbia, both on the field and also with his impact off the field? Comment down below in the comment section if you watch this on YouTube, or shoot me a direct message on Twitter at @aline_SC if you listen to this on an audio podcast app. Once again, thank you for tuning in to the special reaction show on Dylan Stewart's commitment. A big day for South Carolina's football program. Have a great rest of y'all's day, and I'll be sure to catch y'all on the next show of the Locked On Gamecocks podcast.